Every African community or village has something in its history that distinguishes them from other communities, despite speaking the same language and being administered under the same geopolitical region, state, or province. Cameroon may not be a destination point for most tourists who travel to Africa because most European and American travelers already have preconceived destinations and are influenced by other travelers. However, as far as Africa is concerned, and tourism is the focal point, there's no better country to come to than Cameroon because Cameroon is known as Africa's miniature. Besides being a bilingual country with the best history of cuisine sorted dishes as the number of tribes and a welcoming populace, the implication is that every physical feature or attraction a tourist could find on the African continent is in Cameroon. So, if you are a low-budget tourist and the cradle of the Bantu is your destination, think of nowhere else but Cameroon, the seat of the Bantu. The city of Boston is home to thousands of Africans, including Cameroonians. When there's an event, festival, or death celebration, this brings many Africans together. One farewell pulled a massive crowd to Boston to honor one of southern Cameroon's most respected senior citizens, Mami Sarah Mudi Anjo. I will not dwell on Mami Sarah's passing because, as they sing in the Bafal rhetorical song for death, they don't mourn the dead, but the living, for the dead have gone to rest, leaving behind many problems. Mami Sarah was given a memorable farewell that could make any mother envious or wish her sons were theirs. In local parlance, we say, "Pikin dem cry their mommy." Mourners gave Mami Sarah a deserving farewell. What most of them were unaware of, and her children and grandchildren, is the historical significance behind the village Mami Sarah was born. Situated within a panorama of baobab trees, hence the name Ekabum. The colonial masters called her Kokobuma. The history of Kokobuma is very peculiar in southern Cameroons. By every historical account, it remains the core of the Bafal tribe and an upspring of the Ngo dynasty that broke up by the end of the 13th century. The stigmatization effects of slavery destroyed many things, including people's unwillingness to tell generational stories that happened during slavery. There are thousands of untold and, therefore, unknown tales about the area that were actively involved in the slave trade because recounting them opens a can of worms or makes many people uncomfortable thinking about the dehumanizing effects. Before she moved to the present location in the 17th century, a vibrant community had developed about 2 miles away. However, slavery disintegrated Kokobuma because it was a trade route for enslavers from the northern part of what is known today as Cameroon and Nigeria. Little wonder, when 1865 slavery was finally abolished, hundreds of people en route to the United States and Europe were stranded in Kokobuma and immediately created 2 villages, names withheld. By the end of the 18th century, Kokobuma had integrated all strangers into the stream of the Bafal culture, and therefore, they became indigenous. Although many of them moved to Bekumba, meaning umbrella tree, Kumba, a city an indigene from Kokobuman founded. Fast forward to the dawn of colonization and the German implementation of forced labor altered the political landscape and distorted many cultural norms in southern Cameroon. Kokobuma was a recruiting center giving opportunities to less privileged families and strangers because the real indigene hated the German iron-fisted with a passion and fought vehemently to reject it. Like in every community that fought the German rule, the colonialists always attempted to replace their leadership to distort traditional hierarchy. Thus the end of colonization fueled chieftaincy struggles. That of Kokobuma remains one of the fiercest, and it lasted for almost 2 decades after consuming lives and property before the issue was laid to rest. Many historians and researchers have speculated that the exhaustion of local resources, agricultural land, grazing lands, and forests, overpopulation, famine, epidemics, spiritual adventure, and tribal warfare orchestrated the mass movement of the Bantu. Some of these reasons are far from the truth, considering that Bantu shared their knowledge of iron smelting, pottery making, and farming skills with indigenous forager and nomadic tribes they met, many of whom eventually then settled into stable village communities. Bantu dialects and aspects of Bantu culture were adopted. However, the migrants, it is important to note, also learned from the indigenous peoples, especially in areas like cultivating some grain crops or fishing techniques which had been perfected over centuries to get the best from the specific local environmental conditions. However, according to Pilgrimage into the Womb of a Bantu Dynasty, the immediate cause of the Bantu movement was the occurrence of a flood that parallels the biblical Noah's flood. The end of the flood gave birth to the beginning of the Ngo dynasty, to which the Bafas were an uprising. And Kokobuma is the umbilical cord of the entire Bafa tribe. One of the most significant contributions of the Bafa to the Ngo dynasty is the introduction of salt. And it came from a Kokobuma son. Before now, people had various means of seasoning food but not with salt. Nevertheless, the secret of producing salt or seasoning food with salt came at a very high cost. When the Ngo dynasty began to collapse, the quest for land acquisition had pitched one son or tribe over the other. And the Bafa suffered several defeats from the Bakassi and the Bakindu. The primary reason for such pushover was limited population growth within the Nfogo lineage. In possession of a secret no one else knew, it was time for payback. Like many other Cameroon villages, Kokobuman was still mysterious after independence. No sooner had the chieftaincy struggle been laid to rest than the village lost one of its most outstanding daughters, Dr. Dorothy Iki. The consequences of that loss are still felt to date. Think about it.